Couch tripper.
Hello. Once upon a time, there was a man called Jeff. He used to call himself Jeff, but his real name was Geoffrey. Now, Geoffrey used to make an absolute fortune. Geoffrey had a vast, great, stinking pile of money. He had money all over his house. He would sleep with his money, watch the telly with his money, do the washing up with his money. He would bath in his money. Gigantic gold baths full of sackfuls of dosh, where Geoffrey liked to wash himself with huge, great, soaking fistfuls of £50 notes. But we're not going to talk about him, because I have something much more pressing to tell you. I want to tell you about something that happened on a mountain. A great, deep-sided, tree-covered, misty, mountainous mountain, hidden far away in the depths of Brazil. If you wanted to organize a surprise party for your senses, this would be the perfect place to take them. Now, the important thing, and the thing I want you to focus on, is not the fact that there's someone knocking at the door. No, the thing I want you to focus on, and feel free to disagree with me on this, is that Brazil is a genealogist's heaven. Oh, excuse me, I'm afraid I'm going to have to deal with this.
Hello, can I help you? So, where's all this money I made? Who are you? Who am I? I'm Jeff. You just said I used to make an absolute fortune, but I've never seen any of it. You said I used to watch the telly with my money, do the washing up with my money, get in the bath and wash myself with my money and everything, but I haven't got any money at all. So where is it? Where's my money? I want my money now. Well, I'm afraid I can't really help you there, Jeff, and I'm a bit busy right now. So look, just shut your face, you, and give me my money. Put that Beretta down and listen to me, Jeff. I haven't got your money. I haven't even got as far as imagining how you made it all. Well, you better start thinking it up now then, hadn't you, Mr. Storyman? Okay, all right. Here, look, Geoffrey made an absolute fortune by mincing around giving hand relief to pigs and then sticking all the money he made up his arse. Happy? No, I am not happy.
That didn't go very well, did it? Jeff has just shot me in the head 5 times. Well, actually, he didn't just shoot me just then. If he had just shot me just then, I obviously wouldn't be able to talk to you like this. No, that was a reenactment of the shooting with a very talented actor. Now, what really happened, after Jeff actually shot me 5 times in the head, was there was a pause. Quite a long pause, in fact. And after the pause, I could hear a voice. A soft, simple voice. I tried to see, but I couldn't open my eyes. The blood from the bullet holes had run into them and locked them shut. I rubbed them, and then began to see flashes of green, flashes of sunlight. And then, when I could eventually see, I discovered that I was lying on the side of a mountain, a great, deep-sided, tree-covered, misty, mountainous mountain. "What are you seeking, white man?" That was when I saw the mountain girl. "Hello," I said. "Come," she said. "I will take you to see the night man." I followed her. Her long, black, velvety hair cascaded over her shoulders like rich water and tapered down to the small of her firm young back, swaying between the dimples, beckoning me, saying, "Follow me, don't be scared." She knew every cleft and closet of those tropical pathways, along which her bare feet were leading me deeper and deeper into its magnificent secrets. She half turned and looked back over her shoulder, flexing in her petite, soft leather loincloth, allowing for me to catch up. "Who is the night man?" I asked. "He will help you," she said, in a voice that sounded like all the flowers in the jungle coming into bloom. And then she took my hand and led me on through this resplendent palace of tendril-hanging walkways, of luscious greens and drenched browns falling over balconies of scrambled branches, past palms offering leaves like giants' hands, between trunks which soared out of sight towards a glistening canopy. And further we travelled, treading earth which exploded to life on every step, past steaming hot waterfalls which crashed onto smooth black rock below, through dripping fauna saturated in every lustrous colour of the jungle palette, until suddenly we reached a clearing, perched high up, overlooking the maze of treetops. And in the middle of the clearing were 2 stripy deck chairs. "Come, sit," said the mountain girl. So I sat, and beside me she knelt. I must say it was just lovely sitting there. I must say it because it was. In the distance, above the harmonic hum of the forest, I could hear soft chiming bells, almost like they weren't bells at all, but just an expression of lightness in the breeze. The incredible pain inside my skull from the 5 bullet holes was beginning to ease. I laid my head to the side and watched the mountain girl as she gently hummed to herself. Words can't express just how simply, liquefyingly beautiful she was, so I'm afraid you'll just have to imagine her. Every so often, she would place her cool palm on my forehead and offer me sips of mountain water, carried from a nearby stream, cupped in her hands.
"Nasty wound,"
said a voice. I'd fallen asleep. A mountain man was standing over me. The mountain girl had gone.
"Very nasty wound."
"Yes, it is a very nasty wound. I've been shot," I said.
"Uh-huh. Did Jeff do it?"
"It was Jeff, actually. How did you know?"
"Just a hunch."
"Are you the Night Man?"
"Yes."
"Why do they call you the Night Man?"
"Because it is my surname. Roger Nightman. How do you do? What do you seek, white man?"
"Seek? Nothing. I was just telling a story, you see, and..."
"Uh-huh. The story about a lost language."
"Yes. How did you know?"
"Because I am the Nightman."
"Roger Nightman."
"Exactly. Jeff will show you the way." "Jeff!"
he called.
Hang on, sir.
What are you doing behind that tree?"
I'm just zipping up. I'll be there in 2 ticks.
And then Jeff stepped out from behind a tree. I couldn't believe it.
Right, what do you want, Rog? Is it okay to call you Rog, by the way?
"No, it is not. My name is Nightman."
Fair enough, Rog. You're the boss. Now, what can I do you for?
Do you know, I've never been this close to you before. Look at you with all your black gear on.
Shut up, Geoffrey. And it's Nightman to you.
Oh, right, sorry. What do you want? Oh, Nightman.
It's R Nightman, actually, not O Nightman. I'm not called Oberon or Omar or Oswald or any other stupid name beginning with O. R Nightman. Look, just call me Nightman.
All right, okay. What do you want then, Nightman?
I want you to point this man here in the right direction.
Well, look who it is. Long time no see.
Just show him the way, Jeff.
Oh, right, okay. What you need to do is follow this path here all the way to the top. But before you reach the top, you got to turn left, right? You'll see. Good luck. Should I go now, Nightman?
I was about to say that.
Good.
Jeff?
Yes?
Go.
Okay then. Nighty-nighty then, Nighty-Man. Oh, before I forget, do you want tea at 3?
Yes, same as always.
Righty-dokie. Tea at 3 it is then.
Look, Jeff, just go away.
I'm already gone. That's me, not here.
Bloody hell.
And then he was gone.
Goodbye,
said the Nightman, and then he disappeared too. So I started walking, climbing steadily higher and higher along the path, away from familiarity. And every time it looked like the path was about to finish, it continued, as if each section only came into existence as I reached it. And as morning broke, I found myself in a small mud hut village. In the centre of the village sat about 100 anthropological-looking people, wearing headphones and holding microphones. In front of them sat 2 very old men in deck chairs, staring at each other. "What's going on?" I whispered to a woman in a safari outfit. She said, "They're the last remaining speakers of a language that's never been recorded or written." "They're not saying much," I said. "No. Apparently they had an argument 3 years ago, and they haven't spoken to each other since." "What was the argument about?" "No one really knows, but people say it was a technical issue to do with the beginning of human consciousness." "What makes you think they're going to speak now?" "The one on the left is about to die." He did look ill. He was very thin. Then I noticed the mountain girl, kneeling beside him. She reached up and put her hand on his head, then offered some water from her hands. Nothing happened. We waited, and waited, and waited. And then, suddenly, the man on the left took a sharp intake of breath and closed his eyes. Everyone breathed in. Then he opened his eyes, and everyone breathed out again. But at that moment, the whole forest seemed to quieten. The man on the right slowly leaned forward and took the gnarled old hand of his friend. The 2 men looked at each other. 100 tape recorders clicked onto record, and 100 microphones were raised. Then the man on the right started to speak. It was the most beautiful voice I've ever heard. It was like a roasted cello dipped in butter. After about 3 minutes, he finished speaking. The man on the left had begun to smile. He leaned forward, pressed his old friend's hand, and uttered 2 words. Then he leaned back, and he died. I have a recording of that last conversation, and every night I listen to it before I sleep. And when I sleep, I often dream I'm flying with the mountain girl. And as for Jeff, well, I try not to think about Jeff. You see, the thing about Jeff is that he's a complete genital. Excuse me, I'm going to have to get rid of this person.
Jeff!
Hello. David was happily swimming backstroke across a vast Midwest prairie, and he felt sensationally content. Great wagons of serenity were lazily rolling into his mind. Red velvet hotel curtains were blushing with morning sun. And David could hear traffic. His body felt like soft rope being seduced awake by fairy lights. I know, strange, but that really is what David was dreaming about. And anyway, it doesn't matter. David's woken up now, and we are with him. You couldn't have come at a better time, my friend. You've arrived at the beginning of the story. Welcome. Now, in 2 hours' time, David, our hero, needed to be at Spratzenbergen-Flögedövenerf station, boarding a train to Paris. So, after showering, David opened his suitcase and packed 4 pairs of socks, 4 pairs of underpants, 2 shirts, 1 pair of black shoes, 1 suit, 2 books, and 1 letter, and 1 notepad. He picked up his passport, his wallet, his room key, and his case, and he left the room. The door clicked lightly shut behind him. Click! Outside the hotel, a sleek, smooth, creamy-coloured taxi lurched off its haunches and swooped up beside David. Spratzenbergen-Flögedövenerf station, please, said David as he got in. The driver grunted. And 9 minutes later, there it was, in all its glory, Spratzenbergen-Flögedövenerf station. Oh, how much? Said David. Said the driver. You pay. Yes. How much? Said David. Yes, said the driver. David pulled out a bundle of notes, and the driver smiled. A great, big, toothy, gold-capped smile, and his eyes sparkled. Good luck, my friend, said the driver, taking all the notes. Welcome back someday. And he was gone. The station resonated with the magnificent, sedate, shuffly sound of station life. Huge arcs of cast iron laced across the dome, way above David's head. Huge sections of the station remained in great acres of cathedral cool shadow. But in the middle, picked out in a celestial shaft of powdery sunlight, stood the ticket office. David stood in line. A young woman in front of him kissed her lover's cheek. Her lover murmured in her ear, and she laughed. When she laughed, she twisted her body and gripped her lover's arm in that way that people do when they're relaxed. And as she twisted, she glanced at David. The glance became a moment, and in that moment, David fell in love with her. Do you speak English? Said David to the woman behind the thick glass at the counter. Good, thank you. Paris, please. One way. No, I won't be returning. Window seat, please. Can I pay with this? Okay. How about this? Okay. Here. No, that's a picture of my parents on holiday. Do you think I could have my wallet back, please? Yes, okay. Just take the required cash. Just take it. A donation? A donation to which charity? Oh, all right. Well, maybe a small donation. No, not that much. Right. Okay. Thank you. Goodbye. 10:33. David boarded his train and made his way along the corridor towards his compartment. And then he saw her, the girl from the queue. She was sat in his seat. She looked up. She smiled. "Is this your seat?" she said in a voice that made him want to curl up on her lap forever. "No, it's fine. Don't move," said David. "I wanted to face the way we're travelling, you see. And no, I really don't mind." David glanced at the seat opposite the girl, beside the window, facing her. He couldn't sit that close to her. "Just sit down," he ordered himself. But he couldn't. He panicked. Discreetly, of course. He left the compartment and he walked back up the corridor. Oh, damn. The train began its journey. David bought himself a coffee. David drank it. He pulled himself together and he went back. But when David returned to the compartment, there was a man sat opposite the girl. A fat man with a moustache like a broomhead. David met the girl's eyes again. "Here, please, have your seat back," she said, getting up. No, really, I'm fine here," said David, sitting down beside the fat man. She smiled again. "Thank you." The fat man looked hot. The fat man smelt hot. He rested his book on his stomach and wiped the sweat from his head where his hair had once been. The girl looked up briefly. She smiled again at David and then returned to her book. The carriage settled and the city flew past the window, but the arch of her foot was exposed by the shoe hanging, swinging from her toes, and there was a tiny silver moon hanging on the thinnest of necklaces around her neck, which rose and fell with each breath. On rattled the train, out of the summery city, past the gaunt outskirts and out into the ripe countryside. David opened his case, he took out his pen and his notebook, and he started to write. But throughout it all, he noticed every shift of her body, every flick of her eyes, every turn of her head. A train guard was now shouting an announcement along the corridor. The train was drawing into a small rural station. A simple twist of fate. The fat man beside David picked up his bag, wiped his sweaty moustache, and left the compartment. And no one else came in. "What are you writing?" said the girl suddenly to David as the train pulled out of the station. What am I writing? A short story. For yourself? No, for broadcast. On the radio. Are you a journalist? No. Are you a storyteller? Yes, I suppose you could say that. Yes. Then what is your story about? Well, it's not about anything yet. Well, it's about a girl recalling her childhood. Oh, I don't know, really. I'm stuck with it, actually. The girl looked at David without saying anything. Then she said, "Perhaps I can help." "Really?" "Yes. Well, I mean, I'd be happy to listen, if you'd like." "Yes, I would like. I would love that. But it's really only the beginning, though. Is it?" "Good. I love beginnings," she said. So David began to read to the girl opposite him on the train. Okay, this is it. Grace had reached the top of the cliff path. She turned and she looked back down at the beach way below. Memories came to her now, memories, recollections she thought had been flushed away by the tide of time. She recalled a tortoise she once had, and a rabbit called Moosh. "And that's as far as I've got," said David, looking up at the girl. "And now I am stuck." The girl thought for a moment. The girl was looking at David. Then she said, "Moosh had the softest white fur and huge brown eyes. In the hedge there was a young fox. The fox didn't have a name because he was as wild as the wind. Every night at 7 o'clock, Grace would lock Moosh safely away in her hutch. But Moosh knew the wicked fox was out there, waiting for an opportunity. She imagined the moonlight reflected in his dark, hungry eyes, and her sweet scent filling his nostrils. Then, one evening, the opportunity arrived. 7 o'clock passed. The night crept in. Moosh stared out through the mesh of her pen A sudden flash of movement in the hedge. The sound of feet, running, louder, closer, her pen opening, hands gripping her, Grace's hands, and she was lifted into the shelter of her hutch. Moosh lay in the dark, wide-eyed. Then she fell asleep. David suddenly jumped as a train rushed past in the opposite direction. The girl was watching David, and then she carried on. Moosh woke up suddenly. She could see the glare of the moonlight through the cracks in her hutch. "Are you there?" she whispered. "Yes," said the fox. Moosh's feet gripped the floor. "Are you going to burrow underneath?" "Of course," said the fox. "Why are you waiting?" "I don't know." "Do you imagine I would struggle? Would you?" "Burrow." And he did. When Moosh finally felt his mouth around her, it was as she had dreamt it would be, the warmest and most tender embrace. So she only had to pretend to resist. For him. That night. And every other night. In the woods. Together. The carriage swayed. David didn't know the girl's name. She didn't know his. He loved her stories so much, he couldn't speak. And because her eyes were on him, he reached out. When he touched her, the girl closed her eyes. When David kissed her, she opened them and kissed him back. They got off the train. They stayed together. When they lay in bed together, they told each other stories. When they moved in together, they bought a rabbit, and they called their rabbit Spratzen-Nirgenflögedövenerf Station. That's what happened. Night-night. Sleep tight. Now, we all know how difficult the 22nd of May is. It's a difficult day. It's troublesome. Well, when I say we all know, we don't all know, do we? In fact, there aren't that many people who do actually know. But you went along with it, didn't you? That's because we've got this special thing, you and I. Think of yourself as a salad, and me as your dressing, covering you, drenching you in our special, secret oil. Now, pull your radio a little closer to you and turn out your light. There, that's it. Good. We're cozy now, aren't we? And alone. Splendid. Ready to go exploring together. Once upon a time, on the eponymous 22nd of May, there was a man called Mike. Mike's occupation consisted of scarcely anything of any sort of interest at all. In fact, there was absolutely nothing of anything even vaguely resembling interest whatsoever in his crap job. And his daily state of record-breaking, mind-shredding boredom felt to be increasing by the second. He just had to get out of this turd hole of a job as soon as possible. No, sooner. Immediately. And if not that, then suicide. And then it struck him. Sherry. It was time to touch Sherry again, like the full-on hard man he was. 9:15 a.m. 9:15? Splendid. That's an appalling time to be pissed. Right, Sherry at dawn it is then. Well, not quite at dawn, but not far off. Mike straightened his tie in a butch sort of a way, like men who've just made big decisions in movies do, and got up from his desk. He crossed the office, speaking to no one, pushed open the main door in a Dean Martin sort of a way, and strode outside into the street as if forever. things were going to be different from now on. Mike walked straight into the Dog and Trumpet. "What can I get you, sir?" "Pint of sherry, straight up." "Unusual drink for this time in the morning?" "Yeah? Well, I'm an unusual sort of a guy, as you can very well see." "I certainly can, sir. Pint of sherry coming up right away." Mike downed it in one. Bliss. The second pint he took more slowly. He could feel the manufacturers of self-doubt in his brain packing up and heading home for the day because their factories were flooded with liquor. Mike's vision was clearing. Now we're getting somewhere, he thought to himself. At a table in the corner of the pub sat a toothless old man who suddenly slammed down his pint glass with all the strength he could muster and started shouting at the top of his voice, which was only just audible. "You won't understand a word he says," the barman said to Mike. Mike ordered another pint of sherry and turned to listen.
"Good on you, fella,"
said the little old man, waggling his small, bony finger at Mike.
"You're all right, aren't you? You don't let us down, will you? We need you. We're all relying on you."
"See what I mean?" said the barman. "Don't you worry, toothless old drunk," said Mike to the toothless old drunk. "I'm onto it." It was now time to make an exit. Mike slammed his palms on the bar and powerfully propelled himself backwards across the room. He hit the back wall. Thwap! The bar stool smashed against the brickwork below him. Mike landed, rolled his shoulders, clicked his neck, stepped over the broken stool and headed out the door. The world was now making sense for once. Then Mike reached the huge city council building. Its great entrance pillars loomed high against the dark, swirling sky. Eagles had gathered overhead. "Can I help you, sir?" said a receptionist. "I very much doubt it," said Mike, stepping into a lift. "You need to sign in," but the doors had closed. Mike pushed his palms against the walls of the lift and smiled at his reflection in the wall mirror as he ascended. 15th floor, and Mike stepped out. At the end of the corridor was a door. Simon Franks, head of city planning, the nameplate read. Mike entered. From behind a large desk, in front of a panoramic view of the town, Simon Franks looked up. "Excuse me, who are you?" "Sit down," said Mike. "I've got something to tell you." "You'll need to book an appointment with my secretary if you want to see me. You can't just—" "Well, I'm here now," said Mike. "What is all this about?" blustered Franks. "I've got an idea," said Mike. "I thought you might like to hear it." "Through the appropriate channels, I will consider any items which come in here, but this is—" "I've sent many items in," said Mike, "but I never get a reply. Now, why do you think that might be?" You have to understand, we're very busy here. Now, if you don't leave, I am going to call the police." "Okay," said Mike, steady as an electric knife. "Call the police." "Valerie," said Franks, into the thing on his desk. "Could you call the police? I have an intruder in my office."
"Are you okay, Mr. Franks?"
"Just hurry, Valerie." "Well, perhaps you'd like to hear my idea." "Oh, yes, absolutely." "Good," said Mike. He got up. "My plan is to bring public swimming to the roads. I see a parade of lilos, a sea of arms dipping in and out of the water, a synchronized front crawl of commuters, a river of flippering feet. Mike was striding around the office now. We reclaim the roads. We break up the concrete, the steel and the paving, and we start again. We divert streams to primary schools. That is the basis of the idea, said Mike.
Well, that's fascinating. Thank you very much. We'll certainly keep that on file. Now, unless there's something else you'd like to discuss.
That wasn't the response Mike was looking for. Do you have any idea how much I've thought about this? Said Mike. I mean, obviously it's not completely worked out. It's just the beginning. But
Mr. Franks, the police are on their way up now.
Came Valerie's voice out of the thing on the desk.
Well, goodbye, said Franks, confidently.
Mike walked to the window and pushed the window open. Then, in a swift and determined movement, he dragged Franks out of his chair and pushed him backwards through the window, catching his feet as he fell. The chairman's knees caught over the window frame, and he hung like a fat trapeze artist, 15 stories up. You have not given my idea the consideration it deserves, said Mike.
I'll get a committee onto it right away, screamed Franks. I think it has massive potential.
Oh, really? Said Mike. You don't think it's perhaps a little extreme?
Extreme? God, no, not at all. It's absolutely the direction in which we should all be thinking now.
Well, that's really great news, said Mike. I thought I might have to talk you into it. 15 stories below, a crowd of people had gathered. Now, you're absolutely sure I can trust you? Said Mike.
Absolutely. You have my solemn promise. Why don't I come back up into the office and we'll sort out the necessary paperwork?
Okay, but let's shake on it first, shall we? Said Mike.
Of course!
Franks held his hand out as best he could, but as he stretched up, his body twisted and one of his legs slipped out of Mike's grasp. Mike tried to grab it, but in doing so, he lost his grip on the other leg, and then all was lost. Franks had just reached terminal velocity when he hit the ground. It didn't look like he would get up. Ever again. Mike walked out of the office, down the corridor, past the lift, and down another corridor. He kicked open a fire escape and climbed to the highest point on the roof that overlooked a large car park. Below, a growing number of people were gathering. Sirens were whining in the distance.
I can see all of you,
began Mike.
all of the thousands of you. You're all angry, aren't you? You're all hungry. Where is your food? Why haven't you got any food? I'll tell you why. Because the political people have stolen your food. The fat political people have taken your food away. And they are eating it now. Your own children's food. Your own family's food. Your very own food. And why? Because they are scared of you. That's why they are scared of you. And they want you dead.
Mike hadn't finished.
They are the people who stole your land from you. They are the people who stole your earth from you. Your own planet. Your very own planet. These people have stolen all of your everything from you and then made you buy your own everything back from them. And they've hidden all of this away from you, shrouded it all in lies with the anesthetic they've been pumping into you from birth. With their speeches, their newspapers, their media outlets, their advertisements, their posters, their banking systems, their laws, their radio programs. their private schools for their political spawn, their armies, their police and their bombs. But now, their whole system is collapsing. Yes, it's collapsing, and it's time for us to take everything back. We are going to eat all of the rich people!
From below, the crowd were watching in horror. A man, 20 stories up, had mounted a section of security railing on the roof. He was screaming at the top of his voice and waving his hands above his head. And then he slipped and he fell all the way to the ground. Smash! Literally feet away from Simon Franks. As it happened, later, when interviewed, witnesses were asked if they knew what the man had been shouting about. No one could really say. "Something about stealing food, I think," said a woman. "Sorry, I can't be any more help." Passing on his way home from the Dog and Trumpet, the toothless old man stood for a while and hurled abuse at the police, like he always did. Nobody listened to him. Again. And he went home alone. Again. Sweet dreams. Hello. Good evening. Just breathe normally. I'm with you. I know your mind is somersaulting with curiosity right now, but it was bound to happen. This little liaison. This swapping of your time for my words. This exchange of your intrigue for my introductions in the dark. I know that you've been searching, shining torches into the gaps in arguments, looking for clues, prizing up your well-nailed floorboards to peer in, gazing into the fuzz between your television channels, looking for escape routes to places where people who are late for work can swap places with people who have nowhere to go. Places where shopkeepers substitute themselves for the mannequins in their window displays. Your places, not my places. But Jimmy knew about those places, you see. That's why I thought I should tell you about him, about Jimmy. Jimmy had learned how to find those places, you see. Yes, he had. But right now, Jimmy was in a cafe. He was looking down at his coffee. Oh dear, there it was. His coffee, Jimmy's frothy coffee, just sitting there sneering sarcastically up at him. "What are you doing, Jimmy? Sitting there all sweaty and overweight, with your nasty, spotty, bloated nose waiting to accidentally dip itself into me to make you look even stupider than you already look." Never ever listen to your coffee was always Jimmy's rule. So he picked up the cup and stretched his arm 50 yards across the street, carrying the frothing, wittering caffeine through the open back window of a cab and out through the other side before placing it carefully and correctly on the pavement in front of an out-of-work, homeless ex-soldier. Within moments, the street had become very, very noisy. Everyone was now staring at Jim, shouting and complaining. Cars and vans had run into his arm, and 3 vehicles were now pinning it to the road. Breakfast in Birmingham wasn't working for Jim. This wasn't going to be an easy situation to explain his way out of, and he certainly wasn't going to pay for a coffee that had spoken to him like that. So, he held his breath very tightly, he dipped his head very low, and immediately his whole body, his clothes, his everything, his Jimmy, rocketed vertically upwards. His arm wrenched itself from beneath the traffic, vehicles tumbled like clanking toys along the street, and Jimmy shot right up into the sky above Birmingham, and then he split himself diagonally down the middle of his body, from the dippy bit between his right shoulder and his neck. You know, that bit where it's easy to tickle people. Diagonally down from there, right across his tummy button, to the cleft between his left inner leg and his scrotum sac. He split his entire body diagonally, and his two sides left the Midlands instantaneously, in opposing directions. The left travelling at the speed of light, and the right at the speed of sound. So when the two sides reassembled above Glasgow, Jimmy's left-hand side had been obliged to wait a good while for the right to turn up. Basic physics. And since it always rains in Glasgow, by the time the right-hand side arrived, Jimmy's left-hand side was soaked to the bollocks, even though he wasn't the one carrying them.
Well, nice to see you, said the left to the right. Let's get ourselves together, shall we? And get down. Get ourselves together and get down? It's a bit 1970s, isn't it? Said the right. No, it's not. I mean, let's reassemble ourselves and get into one body and lower ourselves down into Glasgow. I don't want to be 400 foot in the air above a weeping Glasgow any more than you do.
And Glasgow was indeed upset, but she wasn't weeping for Jim. She seemed to be weeping for herself, because nothing seemed to be as it should be in Glasgow. Below Jimmy, rows and rows of naked suits were marching proudly over the edges of buildings, down to their deaths. Wooden furniture was floating, blindfolded, out of houses into removal lorries, driven by obsolete typewriters. Staircases were bursting out of the bonnets of cars, their banisters lined with air hostesses, cutting their own throats and waving to Jimmy as he floated on down towards the ground. It was all very weird and all very frightening. Finally, Jim reached the ground. Jimmy was on the ground, but that's when he realised that underfoot, gin was seeping out of the earth. And then Jimmy felt himself beginning to sink further and further down into the gin. Before he knew it, he was literally splashing about in oceans of mother's ruin. And there were cocktail guests in parasol boats, gibbering and squealing for a small bottle of tonic and a slice of lemon. Please, waiter! Christ, where are these people? This was now getting too extreme, even for Jimmy. But then, in this ocean of gin, naked and wet, came Kate Moss, floating on a lilo. In an instant, everything was okay. Kate slipped into the boozy waters, and then in a sudden, unexpected, all-enveloping, wonderful, naked embrace, she slipped into Jimmy. Oh, Jimmy closed his eyes, deep in the glory of his life's own finest prime moment. His lips met with Kate's. Kate Moss's. Kate Moss's lips. Kate and Jimmy's lips. This was all he had ever dreamed of. Oh, bliss. He opened his eyes and... oh, shit. He was alone. Alone in the vast, cold, open, empty plains of Georgia. And there, in front of him, was a huge billboard with one word written on it in 20-foot letters. It read, Dead End. Oh, right, thought Jimmy. Dead End. Interesting. Never seen that before. So, this one stops here, does it? Right. So Jimmy did what Jimmy does. He dipped his head, he closed his eyes, focused, clenched, and completely disappeared. Again, instantaneously reappearing in Bangkok, in another cafe. A pleasant, sun-drenched, outdoor Vietnamese cafe. But, nevertheless, a bloody cafe, where the coffee looked every inch as foul-minded as always. Oh, this wouldn't do. Surely he could do better than this. Come on, Jim, get a grip, he said to himself. So he closed his eyes, he dipped his head, and... nothing. Nothing at all. His mind felt sort of murky and blank. That dead-end sign had hit him hard. He never had that before. Something was wrong. Why don't you try other people? A voice said to Jim. He looked up from his coffee and jumped. It was Mary. Now, that was extremely peculiar, because Mary was dead. Oh, this was more like it. Jim always loved it when he took himself by surprise. It gave him such a lovely, scared rush of fear. This didn't have a logical reason to exist, but there it was, right in front of him, actually existing. His dead girlfriend, Mary, sitting happy and alive in Bangkok and having coffee with him. Something that shouldn't have happened had just happened. Jim had taken himself by surprise. You see, as you've probably gathered by now, Jim did have access to some very unusual opportunities. Pretty much anything Jim wanted, Jim could have for himself. To himself, with himself, on himself, inside himself, whatever. Lucky Jim. That's what he was. Lucky Jim. A very lucky Jim. But what thrilled and scared him a little was always when something illogical, something impossible happened. Something impossible that he hadn't imagined. Something he wasn't actually responsible for. There must be something else at work. There must be. Jim's dead girlfriend was alive. God, he loved her. He took off her dark glasses and they kissed deeply, really deeply and hungrily for well over 5 minutes. When they disengaged tongues, leaned their foreheads together and stared happily and deeply into each other's eyes, Jim said, God, I've missed you, Mary. Well, I haven't missed you, Jim. What? You haven't missed me? No, I haven't missed you at all. I haven't missed you because I haven't been away. I've been right here beside you ever since I died. It's wonderful. It's fabulous. You die and you join in. It's huge. It's complete. It's... Don't you think? Don't I think what? That being dead is great. Now, come on. I want to see my mate Dickie. Let's find ourselves a nice little hotel room, shall we, Jim? Eh? There was a pause. What's the matter? Said Mary. I'm not dead, said Jim. You are. Not dead? Of course you're dead. We're both dead. You died 2 minutes ago. But... Jim was looking very perplexed now. What do you think all this has been about? Said Mary. What do you mean? What happened 2 minutes ago? Oh, come on. The explosion in Birmingham. You were sitting in a cafe. There was a car bomb right beside you. You just sat down with your coffee and were staring into it. And then the bomb went off. It was huge. It ripped your body apart, diagonally, down the middle, from that dippy bit there, between your right shoulder and your neck. Just there, where I used to tickle you. Diagonally down, right across your tummy button, to the cleft between your left inner leg and your balls. Here. She touched him. But I would have thought that dead end sign was a fairly clear message. Oh, shit, said Jim. Unlucky Jim? No, lucky Jim. That's what this was. What Jim's death was. the beginning of the next bit for Jim. "You are Ted." "Gorgeous," said Jim. "And you are dead." Jim? And do you know what they did next? Well, of course you don't. That's why I'm here, to tell you. Jimmy and Mary skipped off giggling to the nearest hotel to do everything and anything they could dream of. It was only the end of Jim for us. So, good night. Sleep tight. See you in the morning. Hopefully. Hello. Don't move. Don't move an inch. Listen very carefully. It's difficult not being in the same room, but at least like this, we're able to communicate for a short while. That's all we need at the moment. A few of these air waves. These waves of air that connect us. These invisible waves that will wash over you like alphabetical snowflakes in a locked nursery. But I've got the key to the nursery, my friends. Yes, and I'm here to explain the chaos in the order of the world to you, like an uncle. Not a scary, drunken uncle, though. No, a special uncle who can see into other worlds. An uncle who's as calm as soup, who can pick you up as if you were made of sweet wrappers and take you for walks with him, with your tiny hand in his big, warm hand, through ancient, misty walkways above the 11th, 12th walking place. Now, in the disorder, bedlam and havoc that occurs in spite of all of us, there is a valley of the gods. Everyone smiles, and someone gathers fish, and another gathers newly rinsed sand, and someone other gathers kisses for the wishes of the old leaves. And then, from round a corner, came a coat. A magnificent, splendid, warm and enclosing red-coloured coat. Pockets for every single occasion, and all of them red. The reddest of reds you could dream of, shouting proudly and clearly, "I am bright red. I am not pink. I am not pale. I am not faded. Look at me, look at me. No one can deny it. I am an extremely red colour. I am a very loud red. So stand back, all you blues and you yellows and you revolting little purples. I am an undeniably superior colour to yours. There is an exceedingly, undeniably, almost unbelievably, exceptionally red coat in your presence. Gaze on me, you other colours, and despair." And they did. Large time. But hold your breasts tightly now, little snowflakes, for this is a truth. That coat contained a man of very largeness, unrolling and unwrapping the unseemliness of his skin between the brickwork and the ironwork and the patchwork of the magnificently swaying, dangling slap-slippingness of his coat, while he inched along the special secret pathways for the private people only, by the inch, by the foot, by the metre, by the centimetre, by the yard, by the mile, by the litre, by the ton, by the millilitres voltage of the scale of the depth of the weight of his wonderfully clever, new, anonymous plan. And nobody in the valley knew his new nobody's plan of splendid, invisible, practically Scandinavianly architecturally unfashionable thinking for himself and not for the others. No, for him, and him alone. And it made him outrageously, obscenely, obstreperously happy. So him sang. Him was him's name, and him liked to sing hymns. Hymns were hymns' songs, and him liked his hymns. Hymns made him smile, which was a good and a significant thing. And there was Desiree, wearing her lingerie hair, which curled around her sweet waist, swooping down, up round around like a tablecloth's dream, swerving and curving down quietly, smoothingly soothing Desiree's hips, while she sauntered strollingly across Him's open ceiling. Him's eyes were wide and blue, absorbing his queen, for he would have been happy to carry her riderless beyond the end of time. She was his Desiree for goods. Stesh went her hair in the sway, bouncing and rolling on its way. Swesh, stesh, mandendering, skenseresh, entuesh, flam went her hair. This was hair made for gods indeed, and Desiree carried it like a woman made of liquid love glass from Spain. Oh, happy smiling times for her and him tonight. But as she reached the climax of her magnificent rolling hair display, for the massive warm staircase of their love, heaving with its profound grandeur, wham, clickety-blam, thwap, bang, slammed the door, wide open. Suddenly, a uniform, suddenly and immediately presented itself. Cascading rampagements and amazements for the general public at large, small or indifferent, tonight, shouted the Master of Ceremonies. There's going to be Major League Good Time Get Down celebrations in the newly completed Blue Horse Cathedral tonight. Get there or get squared, daddy-os, mummy-os, and everybody else-os. Free entry and even cheaper exit tonight. And as soon as he had arrived, he was gone. At that precise moment, the clock in the valley struck hugely and grandly, and then as many as 20 huge 1910 coal-fired ocean-going liners, all in their prime, each made from light brown corduroy, floated effortlessly and became beautifully intertwined in each other's path, each nudged sweetly along by the first signs of a spring valley breeze. Up along the river they cruised, 30 feet above the curling waves, music seeping and spilling through the portholes. It brimmed and cascaded over the great bows and fell like pollen candles across the sky. Each bewhiskered, bemedalled captain stood aloft on the bridge of his deck and bellowed to his crew. And from way below, everyone watched in awe, for this indeed was a majestic sight. Then it was the 11th hour, minute and second. The gong gonged precisely at gonging time, and there they all were, all the winter masterpiece characters, oily, slithering and slippering, cream-smacking, frozen-smelling forms, all streaming towards the great new Blue Horse Cathedral. And when the huge creaking ironwork gates swung open, great flames reached up from the ground and licked the darkening sky. Ancient music saturated the air. Huge, vast doormen ushered the guests through, swaying and curving their lunar white antlers. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Undulating like roaring oceans of liquid clothing, The cloakrooms were soon overflowing with discarded, weeping winter overcoats. When would their dainty, brine-kissed inhabitants return? No one's to say, and no one's to stay. But on went the merciless ticking of the year. No time for wondering or worrying now. On, inside, into the beautiful blue cathedral, the guests continued, circling down through the corridors of silvery birchlight and into the great chasmic velvety red dome. Underbelching memories from November through to March cascaded down the walls and yelped and whirled through the skin-thick floorboards. From the underground kitchens, the orders went out, and up went the sapling-green, crisp-branching April juice. Up through the tubes of new growth and into the swelling vats in the great hall for all to supper on. Then the dancing, fresh-coloured breeze began to blow through the 1,000 happy twirling petals, right up there where the bright, high, light white candle girls performed their outrageous canoodlings. Like flying dervishes, swirling between their shrieks, they dipped and soared so daringly, so toplessly, so brazenly, so downright fearlessly. Up there, above all the everyones, all laughing and applauding this breathtaking beauty, fashion, makeup and powder for the ladies in their heeling shoes and hairdos. On they swung, swinging every single problem's entrails round and around and away, over everyone's emotional cliff edges, beyond the smoky lemon cloud of everyone's seasonal dream. Forever. And now the newborn dancers were starting to hurry up to the front to claim their blooming seasonal prizes, and that was the shape of the shouting in the ballroom, where everyone continued to dance themselves deep into the night and out of the winter darkness, with their melting makeup and teeth turning to hair. And him and Desiree observed it all, waiting for the delightful precipice of time, waiting and ready to command and deliver the moment for all. For soon the sun would be reaching hungrily round the earth, and the beds would be singing for their water once again. Soon the dew would be waking the seeds in the underground bed linen, lifted forth from yesterday's party. And then, at the height of the revelry, it happened. Him's red coat swished, and quiet as a corpse, 10 or 12 or maybe 14 sudden triplets slipped out super quietly and made off with the suitcases full of winter. As simple as that. And him and Desiree melted from sight. And before everyone knew it, great creaking, steel-sounding blindfolds opened. Dawn was arriving. Everything was changing. Changing for else. There were crust-thrusting undergrafts bringing out their newborn. Bees carrying billions of uncountable, pre-autumentated, yellow-smelling fields of dazzling new colours were about to descend from the heavens. But, little snowflakes, just for a moment in the valley, everything went quiet. Quite quiet. Quite quietly quiet. Quite quietly quiet. Tip went a raindrop, and that was all that. Night-night. Hello. 1970s, when people were free, when people could grow their hair long, have big moustaches and be happy, when the people's radio was free and everyone could listen to wonderful music by Brotherhood of Man, Peters and Lee, and Shawaddy Waddy, when people could watch Pan's People celebrating their womanhood on television. That time, the 1970s, has nothing whatsoever to do with our story. Well, almost nothing. You see, our story is about a man called Carl who fell asleep in that decade. He fell asleep halfway through 1972, but didn't wake up. Amazingly, he didn't actually wake up until March 2009. Let me explain. On August the 4th, 1972, Carl was working in his laboratory. He was charting the path of a meteorite and had just worked out that it would miss planet Earth by a mere 72,000 miles, a hair's breadth in cosmic terms, the equivalent, if you like, to a bullet travelling through the sleeve of your jumper, a meteorite which could have wiped out our civilization. And after he had made this fantastic and chilling discovery, Carl popped out to buy a sandwich. And while crossing the road outside his laboratory, Carl got hit by a car. Now, before I continue telling you about Carl, it's important to mention something about us and our time together. Because time is very, very, very complicated. You see, if the future hasn't happened yet, and everything that has happened in the past doesn't exist anymore, then there is only the present. And if there is only the present, then time doesn't actually exist, does it? Not actually. It's just a notion that some philosopher people came up with. And now, here we are, trying to measure on our fantastically expensive watches something which doesn't actually exist. But you don't have to worry about the concept of time, because I am right next to you now, in the present. I mean, right now, right up next to you, with only the double positive repelling action of our little electrons preventing me from slipping into you. I mean, right into you. My atoms mixing with your atoms, baby. Me inside you, and you inside me, and nothing making any sense whatsoever. So, Monique. I'm going to call you Monique, even though we both clearly know that that's not your name. It's just to protect ourselves, because there's a strong possibility that there might be people from the Physics Society listening. So, Monique, I want to tell you now how Carl fits into all this. Carl, our hero, yes? Carl, who, as you know, has been asleep for 37.5 years. On March the 30th, 2009, a nurse called Kate was straightening Carl's bedsheets when he suddenly sat up and said, "I'll do that." After 37.5 years of calm dormancy, after 328,500 hours of serene rest, something clicked on, reconnected, lit up, blinked to life like a little big bang, totally awake. Carl was now ready to pick up where he left off. Nurse Kate was in such shock that she simply stood there, aghast, her right hand poised beneath the mattress, halfway through a hospital corner. 7 years she'd known Carl, 7 years of chatting to him about anything and everything which came into her head, and getting no more response from him than she got from the gladioli in her front garden. Less, in fact. And now, suddenly, here he was, offering to make his own bed. The only offer of help he'd made in nearly 4 decades. Next, Carl tried to get out of bed, something he hadn't attempted for 13,688 days. It was only when he started to fall towards the floor that Nurse Kate leapt out of her own brief paralysis and sprang forward to help him. In their tangled embrace, she felt Carl's hand close in on her breast. She staggered backwards with the weight of his embrace. 2 steps, 1, 2, she and Carl breathed in simultaneously. It was at that moment that Carl's wife, Sally, walked in. "Hello, love," said Carl over Nurse Kate's shoulder. Sally tried to speak, but instead she gave up and fainted. "Doctor!" called Nurse Kate. "Sorry about this," said Carl, "but have you got any idea what's going on?" Kate needed all her strength to lever Carl back onto the bed. As the bed took over his weight, she felt his body brace into a sitting position. She breathed out and met his eyes. They were sparkling with life. Kate felt like she was staring into the very eyes of existence. It was a moment of life-affirming clarity. You've woken up," she managed to say. "I never thought that you've woken up." Carl swallowed, and the smallest tremors of confusion began to leak into his face now. A naive sort of confusion, like a baby's searching vulnerability when it plunges headlong into the cold light of birth. Like its look of stupefaction in the pregnant pause following a seismic push from one world into another. Like the liminal moment before its unrehearsed voice splits through the first molecules of drawn breath. The moment before its lost expression crumples like tracing paper for tears to roam its crinkles. Maybe he was alarmed because Kate was crying. Kate's face was now gulping in a smile which gasped with joy. And then suddenly Kate remembered Sally, Carl's wife, lying on the floor as if emptied out of a jar of shock which had been sealed shut for 37.5 years and labelled "Open slowly and with extreme caution." "Don't move," Nurse Kate said to Carl. "Do you need to lie down?" "No," said Carl. It was so strange for Kate to hear his voice. It was nothing like she'd imagined. Kate punched the red panic button on the wall beside the bed and knelt down beside Sally. She tried to occupy the space equally between the husband and wife, like a conductor poised between the soloist and the first violins. "Sally," said Kate, taking Sally's hand, "Sally, can you hear me?" By collapsing onto the ground, Sally's head and heart had attained the same gravitational level, so her heart didn't need to work as hard to push blood up into her brain. Isn't the body the most beautifully functioning organism? We can but stand in awe of our naturally occurring talents and the freakish culmination of evolutionary events, which distinguishes us clearly from another existence, spent simply licking bacteria off cave walls. 2 doctors burst into the room. One of them was Julio. Whenever Kate saw Julio, her heart soared. He was the man who she wanted to pin her against a wall, drag her skirt up, clutch the back of her head and enter her atomic structure, and then, afterwards, to propose, marry her into his life and take her and their children to live on a grape farm in Seville. Oh, yes, yes. Sally, Carl's wife, opened her eyes. She was dazed and confused, circling like a drunk zeppelin which had lost all sense of why it was flying or where it was going. "Holy Mary," said Julio on seeing Carl. "Mr. Constantinople!" exclaimed Dylan, the other doctor, who was fairly settled in his home life, apart from a dispute he was having with the family from 4 doors down, whose dog kept shitting all over his front lawn. "It's okay, Sally, you fainted," Nurse Kate said to Sally. Sally looked up. She looked at Carl. The 2 doctors were looking at Carl. Everyone was now looking at Carl, who was sat on the edge of the bed, looking like a child. At precisely that moment, 7.3 miles away, a man called Dennis was driving a taxi. Dennis was 5 foot 9 inches tall, 57 years old, and he had a face like a kind potato. He was slightly overweight, had a slight Cockney twang, and he always wore a baseball cap, backwards. You could say Dennis was a bit jumpy, a bit nervy, a slight hint of confusion in his eyes, and he often didn't know what to do with his hands. Know what I mean? And people were forever ignoring Dennis. But over the years, he'd grown accustomed to it. He'd grown used to never getting served at the bar, never having a door held open for him, never ever being invited to anything particularly exciting, and people were always forgetting to send him a birthday card. A large proportion of Dennis's time was spent driving around the city in his cab, but he loved his job. He loved the way the city moved. He loved its indifference. He often thought about the tiny significance each of its inhabitants had, the way their lives on an individual level affected things in such infinitesimal ways. But, en masse, they formed this huge living and breathing organism. An organism answerable only to itself, searching for direction, unable to successfully connect with its environment, unable to come to terms with its position in the natural world. Dennis was a man who listened to people talking about themselves. The man he had in his car tonight was telling him all about bathroom fittings. However, on this occasion, Dennis wasn't actually listening that closely, because for the past 11 minutes, he had been feeling rather odd, slightly different, slightly light-headed, and his heart was racing. He felt like he might cry. And then his phone rang. Sorry, just one moment, Dennis said to his passenger. Hello, Sally, Dennis said to his sister-in-law. 10 seconds later, Dennis nearly crashed into the car in front. Hey, watch out! Cried the passenger. But Dennis wasn't listening to him. He pulled over. Sally's words were ringing in his ears.
He just sat up,
Sally said.
Carl has woken up. I can't believe it. Carl has woken up.
Now, Dennis and Carl had been almost inseparable, like many identical twins. When Carl had fallen asleep in 1972, something in Dennis had also fallen asleep. And now he had woken up. Dennis got out of the taxi and started walking. And then he broke into a run. And another meteorite flew by and missed the Earth. Just. It also went completely unnoticed. Good night, Monique.